We did have something absolutely crazy happen. We have been on this story. We have been on this team as soon as this news broke that they are firing their head coach in the middle of the season. We are like, that's weird. And then you sent over to me like, actually, they're considering Doc Rivers. And I was like,
Yup.
that's a joke, right? And then apparently Doc Rivers thought it was a joke too, because Doc Rivers was like, you're doing what? And you want to hire me? That's interesting. I don't know why you're doing that, and I'm probably not the right head coach for the job, but you know what? I'll take it anyways. And honestly, it gives me less respect for the Bucks and more respect for Doc Rivers. Because does this change my opinion of Doc Rivers? No, because the Bucks should not have given him the opportunity to begin with. If he is an advisor in your team and he's like, I don't know why you're doing that. I don't know what you're doing it, but will I get a raise? Okay, I'm probably not going to get too many other head coaching opportunities in the NFL or the NBA. We were just talking about the NFL for about an hour and a half there, so still in NFL mode. But for the NBA, and then Doc Rivers was like, "I okay, as your advisor, I say this is a bad move, but I'll take the head coaching job." And for me, that is L in the chat. Milwaukee Bucks. What are we doing? What are we doing, fellas?
It's so funny. No, as soon as I sent that to you, I'm like, if they hire Doc Rivers, it is the beginning of the end for the Milwaukee Bucks as we know it, for a few reasons. Might be the end of Giannis's career in Milwaukee. Could be the end of Damian Lillard's time in Milwaukee. It could be the end of their title hopes. And all three of those look to be true. Look, Doc Rivers, if you're a fan of the NBA, there are a few things that are certain in the NBA, right? Joker putting up insane stat lines, the obvious. LeBron James doing LeBron James things for 22 years. And then the Doc Rivers failed experiments, because we saw him in Orlando blow 3-1 leads. We saw him in Boston blow leads. We saw him in LA blow leads. We saw him in Philadelphia blow leads. And now we're in Milwaukee. And now we're seeing them continue to nosedive since hiring Doc Rivers. And Doc Rivers, some people who are maybe not as good as people think, maybe they have a bit of an ego about them. Some of them lack awareness, but Doc Rivers, very self-aware. He's like, I don't know if I'm a very good coach. I point the finger at the players often. A lot of my former players hate me, i.e. players like JJ Redick, players like Kawhi have rumored to not like him, Paul George, players that
James Harden.
James Harden, the big three in Boston, they had a beef for about 15 years after the fact. Rajon Rondo and him got in a fight at practice, blowing several 3-1 leads. So Doc Rivers knows. He knows all of it. He's like, I don't know. I've had a few lumps in my career, but you want to hire me? You want to give me a bunch of money, even though you're already paying Mike Budenholzer and Adrian Griffin? Sure, I'll take the money. And if I was in Doc Rivers' shoes, would I have done the same thing? Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody would have done the same.
Yeah.
And him making press conferences to embarrass them only makes it funnier.
Yeah. And then they're like, Doc, you have Giannis. You have Damian Lillard. How did you lose to the Memphis Grizzlies with a G League team starting? And then he was like, the 10-game stretch wasn't ideal. It wasn't like too good for me as a time to take over. So like if we struggle, it was just because it was a tough 10-game stretch, even though we lost to practically a G League team. And you're like, what the hell is happening in Milwaukee? And the Milwaukee Bucks are a team you had optimistic from. They won a championship here. They're not going to be like a Dirk Nowitzki Mavericks team. Giannis has a chance to start a dynasty in Milwaukee. And then they're like, you know what we should do? We should trade away Drew Holiday, give Boston an opportunity to get him. Drew Holiday was the one guarding Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Chris Middleton at this point is too old when they should have traded him. And they have no perimeter defense, so they're like, oh, let's fire our coach and get Doc Rivers because he's a defensive head coach, even though he couldn't slow down Boston and he couldn't figure out how Joel Embiid could get it drawn up on the court so he could score on a 60-year-old Al Horford. And then they're like, you know what? He's going to fix our defensive problems. And then we're going to sign Patrick Beverley because Russell Westbrook famously said that Patrick Beverley just runs around a lot, so it looks like he's doing something, but actually he's not a good defender in the league. And then also, he's someone who can't shoot. When Giannis is the best player on your team who can't shoot, so you need 4 shooters around him. So now it's an absolute mess. And my question is, what did Jimmy Butler do to you? Like, honestly, did Jimmy Butler kidnap the owner's wife and was like, I need a title run here in Miami, and you're one of the best teams in the league. I'm not going to let you stop my run in Miami. And then Boston, they're a bunch of puppies. I can take on Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown can't dribble. They want to sign a guy who gets hurt every playoff run in Kristaps Porzingis. And then Drew Holiday is old, and I'll have my own Drew Holiday and Terry Rozier. What did Jimmy Butler do to you? Because he had to do something to the owner to explain these dumb decision after dumb decision. The Dame trade, I get. But at the same time, it backfired on you because now Boston got Drew Holiday, who's going to match up and shut down Chris Middleton against you. And Boston can actually play perimeter defense. And actually, all their players on their team are perimeter scorers, which is what you can't defend.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And then back to that Jimmy Butler thing. If we think about it, with the shit that he did with Rachel Nichols in the bubble, would it be so surprising if he did something to the owner, if he had blackmail on them? Anything's possible with that madman. And it's amazing to see, because with this Bucks team, even this year, even with their moves, you saw Dame come to there like, okay, well, now Giannis has a legitimate number 2 because, you know, Drew Holiday, he's great, but I wouldn't consider him like that to that same level as Dame Lillard. But what ended up happening is Drew Holiday went to the team that, if there was any team that he should not have gone to, if you're Milwaukee, it was Boston. He goes to Boston. They get significantly better. Your defense takes a step back. You get Dame Lillard. And it doesn't seem like the pairing really meshes all too well. I know there's some, you know, growing pains that first season. Maybe they get better. Maybe they don't. But firing a coach mid-season and replacing him with the most infamously fake good but actually bad head coach of all time. We're talking an all-time bad, steals the bag from multiple organizations bad level, Doc Rivers. Now, we look at his career, right? Orlando, right? They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Okay, does that make him a good coach? Who knows? Boston.
They have Dwight Howard, though?
Yeah, for a period of time he did. And then
Rashard Lewis, the one and only.
Yeah. And then in Boston, you had Kevin Garnett, one of the greatest power forwards of all time. Ray Allen, one of the greatest shooters of all time. And then Paul Pierce, solid small forward of all time. Great team. They win 1 title.
Rondo, Eddie House, Kendrick Perkins.
Sam Cassell.
Like, that team should have won at least 2 championships.
Glenn Big Baby Davis.
And then you also blew a 13-point lead where Cedric Maxwell famously said he was getting ready to go down on the stage and present the Eastern Conference Championship trophy to the Boston Celtics, who had Oklahoma City as high schoolers waiting to play them. And we saw what Miami did to them. Boston definitely could have beat that team. But no, you decided to blow that lead when Cedric Maxwell was already getting ready to give you the trophy.
Huh.
And then you also had 2 40-point triple-doubles from Rondo in the first 2 games and lost both of them.
Yep. Just Doc River things. And you talk about a guy, I don't know if we can, maybe, you know, next week we can find out who the NFL equivalent of Doc Rivers would be. But Doc Rivers, he's a special place in the minds of NBA players because everybody knows who he really is, except for the media and except for the Milwaukee Bucks, who have since then, over the last 10 games,